Okay, so let's zoom in a little bit, and can you describe what the process was with getting you up and running as someone who transports migrants, what that process looked like? You and I had talked previously about a couple of training runs being done that you had done with Joe.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about that, and then what the actual process, once you started doing it for yourself, what that started to look like.
Okay. So getting set up was pretty simple. All it requires is that you have some kind of transportation that's not a Volkswagen Bug or a
Is that
Kia
right?
Basically, you just need any small to mid-sized large car
Okay.
with a trunk, somewhere you can conceal, at least 2 to 3 people.
Specifically a trunk. You can't be in like an SUV that's lookable through like a window or something.
I don't know about that.
It was important to them that you had a small to medium-sized car that you could fit 2 to 3 people in.
Because even if, because eventually we do transfer them out of the trunk to the back seats, passenger seats, wherever, so they have normal seating. But even then, they're supposed to like lay down, lay low, just like don't, because obviously it looks suspicious. I don't know if you can include this in the video. My race is Caucasian. It obviously looks a little strange if I'm driving back from Mexico by myself as one Caucasian female and I have, say, 4 sweaty, dirty, Hispanic-looking passengers. That might look a little strange, especially because they're not stupid. They know what they're looking for, you know? They know what the people like us do, the little bottom feeders, so that they're told to keep their heads down, even when we transition them. So I'd done a couple, I guess, test runs with to get the general feel of what the operation was going to be like.
So these were dry runs where nobody was being transported, or were you actually transporting
someone?
someone?
There was no people, no drugs, nothing. We were completely clean. He wanted to show me what it would look like if I was going to go through a small checkpoint and what I could expect if I had to interact with an officer that was not part of our operation. There are people we have on the inside that are being paid off. I don't know exactly how that works or
By
how
the
they
cartel?
coordinate that. Yes.
So these would be
that's a huge part of their operation.
either police or Customs and Border Patrol,
yes,
personnel.
And there are 2 different kinds of ways that they do this, from what I've understood. So they either have, the first way is that the people on the inside are made aware that there's going to be a load coming through. And there's kind of an understanding, because think about it, they have to make their quotas too, right? They have to catch a certain number of people or make it look like they're doing their jobs. So it becomes almost a mutual beneficiary relationship where we send a small load through and they catch the small load, in order to let the big load through. And it's like, then here, we've given you something, but you've let our large load through.
Are they burning one of their low-level people in order to do that?
What do you mean burning?
So they've got, let's say, a new bottom feeder. They throw 1 or 2 migrants in a car and let them get burned?
All the time.
Get out.
All the time.
Okay.
And the part, and then I think that might have been what happened to me. I think that might have been
You think
what
you got
happened.
burned?
I think so. I'm pretty sure there might have been a larger load coming behind me and the reason I say this is because I'd say the typical amount of people I'd run is 3 to 4. The last run I had got caught up in, I don't remember if I had 2 or 3 people, but usually when it's a smaller load like that, they don't want to lose too much of their investment, Obviously they're not going to send a load through to get caught if you have 6, 7 people. That becomes more money that they lose. So they're going to send a smaller load through, and there's kind of that agreement that we're going to give you this, you're going to let the big one through, and we've both kind of helped each other at the end of the day.
Okay. So you've done 1 or 2 runs with Joe.
And the second way is where they are not being made aware on the inside that there's load coming through.
Okay.
But the smaller load is still used in the same way as kind of a distraction, but this time they aren't aware of the larger load, but it is just used as something to distract them while the larger load is able to pass through, because they're busy caught up with the other, dealing with the other thing.
Okay.
They're not expecting, probably right on their toes, something right after that, you know what I mean?
I
So
see.
there's two different ways they use that. They're either aware or they're not. But I know they do it both ways.
Okay.
And there are people paid off on the inside.
And yeah, at the border, if you've got people hiding in your trunk, at the border, you were telling me before that they have infrared sensing.
Yes.
They've got lots of different ways to catch people, dogs, etc. And so on some level, if somebody is making it through the border, through one of the ports of entry, and they've got people in the trunk, it's because someone is either making a mistake or looking the other way, most likely the latter.
Yes, I would say most likely the latter, because it is pretty hard to get people. If you're going to go through any kind of checkpoint or the port of entry, which you don't have to, there are ways around it. But if you are going to go through, the chances of you getting caught, with people at least, I have some idea of how they do the drug thing, but don't have all the details. If you're going to go through with people, there's a million different ways you can get caught. I would not recommend it unless you have a guarantee from whoever's above you that we do have people involved in this operation that are on the other side as well. I wouldn't just dry run it through like, oh, just keep your head down, you'll be good. I would not.
There's
do
just
that.
too many ways to get caught.
Yes, but so this is actually, and I was never involved in these parts, but I do know some of the other ways they do it. I believe this is more for the girls that are involved in the actual being sex trafficked.
Okay.
They will take them in the cargo, like the shipping containers, and they will put people in the shipping containers. Like ships that come through to the U.S., and I know that's how some girls get through.
Okay.
But,
From Mexico.
Yeah, but that's more of an investment, because it's like they really don't want to get caught, because I know the people that get sex trafficked, there's obviously a lot more money in that than just bringing regular migrants over, you know? So I know they do that.
Okay.
What else? I feel like there was something else I was going to talk about with that. The tunnels. They have
Okay.
tunnels, which I'm pretty sure you've been made aware of.
Absolutely.
Daryl actually
I've
told
seen
me
some
about
of them
this.
actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, in Nogales.
I want to see. I've never seen. But,
Yeah, well, I mean, ones that have been found and filled in,
Yeah.
other ones that still exist, others that are part of kind of the municipal infrastructure,
That's
like
what they
utility
do.
tunnels.
That's what they do. They will dig from Mexico, and sometimes the tunnel could end up in the back of a car wash shop, you know? Like, you wouldn't fucking expect you go into the back office of a car wash and, you know, move some shit around. There's the end of your tunnel. You know what I mean? Like, they're not stupid about it. They get creative because there's a million ways to get caught. So you always
Right.
have to.
So tunnels are still a thing.
improvise.
Like they were
Yes.
talking
Oh,
about
very
moving
heavily.
people through tunnels.
They still do that a lot. Like, I wouldn't say as much as the way I do it, because it's becoming more popular now, especially with social media, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat. They do use these platforms to reach out to younger people who are more susceptible to these, are you looking for work offers? And they don't fully realize what they're getting into.
Okay,
because
we'll
they're
go
easily
more into
manipulated.
that. I know there's a bunch there. We'll go into that here in a minute. Okay, so let's back up to, you've done your one or two or several, I don't know how many it was, runs with Joe, and he showed you essentially how to get across the border.
Yes.
Inside of the border, typically within, let's say 20 or 30 miles from any major point of entry on any of the major roads, you're typically going to run into some type of Customs and Border Patrol inspection station. And you get this essentially across the border. I've been through a million of them, and you know, they usually orange cone off the road and make you divert into what looks like kind of a Quonset hut airport, you know, aircraft a terminal, like protection area. You pull in, and essentially you've got Customs and Border Patrol who's there. They've got a flashlight. They're kind of looking at you, looking in the back of your vehicle, ask you questions about what you're doing. Okay, so you had gone through one or two of these. Okay.
Yes. And this is another thing we would do. So they tell you, for example, that day you wear something, how do I put this? Something that's able to be picked out of a crowd, but not memorable, if that makes sense.
Okay.
For example, like a red hat one day. I told Joe, I'm wearing a red hat. I have my hair braided in 2 braids. I'm wearing a red hat. And I told him that information you give. And obviously they know what kind of vehicle they're supposed to be looking for. They kind of have a basic description, from my understanding of it. But you can give like a...
This is someone on the inside who's looking for...
Yeah, but I don't... The problem is like this is this part where it gets scary for me. I'm left mostly in the dark about this part. So it's kind of, you're putting a little bit of blind faith into, you just go ahead and like, I don't know who the person is I'm supposed to be talking to. I don't know. You know, so that's scary. You just have to trust, like, go through now. Like, you know, you give them your description and I guess they tell whoever it is or however that works. Like I said, like the one time I had a red hat, I had my hair braided in 2 braids.
I see. Is this port of entry or is this inside the country at one of the inspection stations on the highway?
Both. You tell them like that morning, like when you get the people, you're like, you know, I'm wearing this, you know, or I'm whoever.
And then they'll let all of the people that hypothetically you would run across on the route that they've told you to take, look for the girl with the red hat and the braids.
They have to make it look normal because obviously, like, you get asked, like, what are you doing here? Why? What's your purpose? What do you know? And one of the things they tell you to do is they tell you to get your car dirty. So obviously, I'm traveling from a large city, you know, very urban area. My car's clean, and I'm traveling, you know, to dusty, deserty areas, and it looks a little strange if I go down there with a clean car and return with a clean car in, say, 14, 15 hours. That looks a little weird, right? Like, get your car dirty because it looks like you've been out, you've been traveling around, they want you to look like you've actually spent some time there and you've been, you know, maybe exploring or doing whatever in Mexico. They don't want you to look like you just went there and back really quick because that raises red flags if you come back with a clean car, and I was told that. And I would actually go out in the desert and I'd do like, not donuts, but I would drive all crazy through the desert and I would get my car dirty and dusty so it would look a little more like I didn't just run over there and run back really quick. So that is a red flag. Okay. So the way that... There's a bunch of little tricks, you know?
Yeah, so that, I mean, this is all fascinating. The way that you were given instructions, what did that look like? Did it come from a certain person? Did it come just via a set of texts?
Yes, so I would keep in constant contact either through phone calls, and we would not communicate through iMessages whatsoever. We only used, I want to say WhatsApp. I can't recall if it was WhatsApp or Kik, but I want to say WhatsApp. Because I think it's encrypted or unencrypted, whatever.
WhatsApp's encrypted. Both end encrypted, so. Yeah,
so we'd use WhatsApp, and I was told like constantly keep my phone on me because you are constantly like calling them with updates, or they're calling you, or there's changes in plans a lot of the time. Like, hey, don't take this route, like go this way instead. There's been a change. Like, you have to like be ready, you know, split second that there could be a change in the plans, and a lot of the time there are unexpected delays because the people will die in the river, or they'll die in the desert.
The migrants?
Yes. They're sick, they're starving, some of them pass out from heat stroke, or they drown. They straight up drown in the river. And unfortunately, as brutal as it sounds, you know, they don't have much choice except to just, you know, leave that person for dead and keep going, you know?
How far
You can't lose the whole load because of one person.
How far into Mexico are you going to pick these people up?
Oh, not far at all.
Okay, so more or less right across the border-ish?
Yeah. Like, okay, so I don't know the exact geographical layout. So I was coming from my city. I would say the drive is about 7 hours, if I remember correctly. I would drive, and I would be driving pretty fast, maybe 80 miles an hour for most of that trip. So I would get down to the Eagle Pass area.
And that was where most of your activity took place, was Eagle Pass, Piedras Negras.
Because you get to Eagle Pass, and then there's the port of entry is like right there.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I saw it, and I was like, what the f*** that, and I was just kind of driving around it. There wasn't really anyone. It was the end of the day, and I was just like, what the hell is this? I was just kind of exploring, driving around. You don't go to a set, like there's no hotel or city. They drop you coordinates, which is very strange. You get a set of coordinates to go to, you type in the coordinates, and obviously you kind of end up in the middle of nowhere. And it's pretty sketchy because
Outside of town?
Yeah.
Outside of town?
Yeah.
On the Piedras Negras side?
Yeah.
Okay.
You'll be in the middle of nowhere, in the dark, in the desert, like usually, you know, like by some hills or like a tree, something where you're not just sitting out in the middle of the open.
Yeah.
But you're kind of out there in nowhere, you know, like it's pitch black, like pitch black. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you go, you're waiting. Do they send you a certain amount of time early to make sure that you make that connection? Are you waiting periods of time? Like how long do you wait if they don't show up?
So the goal is to linger as little as possible because it's obviously a little hard to explain away if you get caught up while you're sitting in the middle of the desert with coordinates on your phone. You know, because
Okay.
they will look through your phone if you get caught up and you're just sitting there. So you can't really do that. They tell you to get there at this time, so you arrive there, and you typically don't ever want to wait more than 20-30 minutes. Once you start getting to that point, it's time to drive around and, you know, maybe find somewhere else to relocate for a while until the plans have been reinstituted and it's clear why there's a delay or what happened. And sometimes that can take hours, sometimes it can take days. You don't always know what the situation is. Like I said, sometimes they drown in the river. You know, like a kid dies and they have to keep going.
Okay.
But there are those delays, and but you want to get out of there as fast as possible. You
Yeah.
don't want to be sitting there.
Do they ever drop you new coordinates and oh, they're not going to be here, you're going to have to go over here now?
It's such a pain in the ass because, you know, and sometimes they don't even make it through. You'll drive all the way down there, you'll get through everything, you'll get to Mexico, you'll be sitting there waiting, and, you know, maybe you'll wait for 25 minutes. And then you realize they're not coming, you call whoever, and then it usually turns out,
Wow.
you know.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I got lost.
Well, at that point, so they don't show up. Maybe they die.
They don't.
Maybe,
Sometimes they don't show up at all.
Okay.
And like the coyote had like a delay with the whole group for whatever kind of
Okay.
reason that is. They got caught. You don't know. I
Okay.
was always kept in the dark.
So
about
these people
that.
are typically showing up with some type of guide, guia, or coyote that they're traveling with to get to the coordinates
Yes.
that you're dropped. Did you recognize the same coyote, or was it a
I
different
never
person?
interact with the coyotes.
Okay.
They, from what I understand, they get to, I guess the coordinates that I'm at are given to whoever that is. They get them as close as possible, and then every time they kind of just come out of nowhere. They come
Okay.
out of the dark.
The migrants.
Yeah.
And do the coyotes also show up with them, or do they just take off?
I've never even interacted with the actual coyote,
Okay, interesting.
who I would even consider to be a little above me, because I would assume they're getting paid way more than I am. But I'm not sure.
Okay. Did you get a sense for how far these people were coming in from?
Oh, they come from everywhere. I was never personally involved in this part of the operation, but there are many people who run. Chinese immigrants,
Chinese,
Arabic, Turk,
Arabs, Turks.
I'm trying to think what else. Those are typically the ones that pay more money.
They pay more money.
Especially the Turkish and Chinese. I've heard up to usually $50,000 a head.
15?
50.
50,000.
You have a car full of, say, 4 Chinese immigrants, you're going to get 200 grand that day for 14 hours worth of work. $200,000 in cash off the books on your hand. This is why we have such a crisis.
Okay.
The money is insane. But for those kind of runs you're usually taking, because they're paying so much, they usually want to end up in Florida, New York, Connecticut,
see.
California, Washington. They want to go up.
And that's up to you to take them that far.
Yes. That's why it
Okay.
pays so much, because obviously you're traveling a much longer distance. The risk goes up of getting caught.
I see.
Obviously the risk decreases the farther up you go, but it's still, obviously you have it's scarier to run someone a few thousand miles than just a few hundred. You know?
Right.
So
Okay.
it does pay a lot more.
As somebody who is relatively entry level, were you given some of these higher value folks to transport? No. Okay. you were mostly transporting
That's
people
way
from
more
Mexico?
precious cargo, so you have to work your way up to
up.
those points, or find someone who's willing to take a risk on you from the get-go.
Okay.
So,
And that's where the big money's at.
yes.
So at some point, does it become when you're really trusted, you're either running these high value folks or you're starting to run drugs for them?
Yeah, and obviously you don't have to run drugs, but
Oh,
and
okay.
and because it pays more, you know, they charge you with a heavier sentence if you get caught up with that, hence why it pays more. But yeah, they're coming
Okay.
from El Salvador, Guatemala, like they come from everywhere, all Latin America, South America, Europe, Asia, like it's
Yeah.
not just Mexicans.